Thanks. Look, I have to run. We have another meeting. Okay, thanks so much. Right, bye-bye. Mac.
Jerry, hey.
Non-stop, huh?
I know, but incredible workshops we're having.
My gosh.
This is fantastic.
I was just phoning in to Gerard. He's going to be meeting us in Pune.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just saying what a great workshop we're having. That's on there.
Super excited about Demo Asia, 25. I mean, that's gonna be a killer expo over there. I mean, I personally have not been over to India yet, so that's gonna be a huge development.
Yeah, it's well, I guess a little background for our friends out there in MGSN land. So necessity.
Mm-hmm.
You know who its mother is, right? So let's give a little bit of background. We had a very successful practice in New York City, and we pretty much were able to do it without any marketing whatsoever. That's on feat. There. So if you're a trial lawyer, you win your cases. If you're a transaction lawyer, you close the deals.
Right.
That's on there, and then that creates this word of mouth. That's on there. We had been, we then networked within our community, and we found this magnificent young startup that was based out of the UK, and their goal was to build out renewable energy projects in Africa, African countries that were on there, and we were really helping with that out. And then, of course, came the whole issue with respect that the United States and other countries were recognizing that carbon could actually be turned into an asset if you were able to reduce it.
Yeah.
And then if you had certain projects that were purely just producing energy from carbon units, then those could be sold, and people could use that to sort of offset their carbon footprint. And there was an exchange that was built. And it was so strong that the commodities exchange, and there was a big article all over financial newspapers that carbon would be the new gold. It would be the new oil. It would be the asset. And it was a brilliant methodology that was started.
Yeah.
So we flew over to London, and that was our goal. We had sat down with people in the commodity exchange. We had financial institutions that were backing us, and we looked like we were going to be able to take these projects and bang them out. That was on there. On my plane ride back from London, the financial crisis of 2008 hit, and that was a gigantic setback. One of the investing partners that were in this mix that we brought in, they went under.
Yeah.
The carbon exchange in Chicago, which we had great relationships with. It was an actual exchange in Chicago, commodities exchange. And, Chicago is the epicenter of commodities exchange. That collapsed. That was on there. And to make matters worse, the prosecutors started going after some of the contractors that were main clients of ours. They couldn't pay our legal fees. And then the real issue, and they've been with us for decades, and then the real issue came down to, well, we're going to have to do something to help the clients out. So one of the most brilliant lawyers in the globe, this guy by the name of Eamon Dornan, based in Northern Ireland. He had lived in India for a while and built out what's called legal process outsourcing services, and we were in trouble. So what do entrepreneurs do? They navigate these. They find some sort of solution. The idea of going over to India seems so remote, so difficult.
Right.
So we did. We went over there. That was a good 2008. So do the math.
Yeah.
And we've been working with SKJ jurists, and they've been both helpful. I mean, immensely helpful on our practice with respect to the transactions and the litigation. That's on there. Conversely speaking, while we were over there, we started building out our networks across Asia. Japan was a big target. Taipei, which you'll be going.
Excited about that.
Demo's going in. That was a very nascent ecosystem, but we were so impressed with those young people that we met over there that we said,
Mhm.
"Hey, this is gonna bloom. This is gonna really bloom into a great startup ecosystem." That was on there, and it's been a real pleasure, building out across Asia. We're currently right now, and we hope that this will be a demo. Is in Jakarta in Indonesia. We've been really working on that with respect to having a outsourcing on what we believe will be a growing SME M&A market that's on there. So these are some of the Asia is a very exciting place. You still, especially when you're talking about South Asia and Southeast Asia, you have a very large youthful population, and the ability, young American entrepreneurs will have to sort of go into these markets because that's where the consumers are going to be. So that's the background of how we started developing in Asia our entrepreneurial endeavors.
That background is super important because I mean it's proof too why most startups fail and most businesses fail is because you actually can do everything right and sometimes it's bad timing.
Yeah.
Sometimes the market doesn't care. You might even find a great solution, you might find the right strategic partnerships, but sometimes it's just the wrong time. It's the same thing with sales. It's about timing. You could have the perfect pitch, the perfect product, but if they're not ready to buy, you know there goes that. So, but the amazing thing about entrepreneurship really is that sometimes the market tells you it's the wrong time, even when you're right. But then it gets you to be resilient. The thing that has been kind of the theme of Demo 25 so far, that it forced you to find alternative, solutions to something that, okay, maybe this is the right time for this. Let's pivot. And this whole solution that you found with Amen with the LPO over there in India has been an incredible thing where it's like, and again, when we talk about resiliency, it's how you respond to the challenges in the marketplace when you're trying to start out your business or your startup. So I think that's an incredible story, an incredible background, because that's everything we're talking about with these young founders and these young startups, me included. It's good to hear those stories because it's how you respond to that, and instead of getting down on yourself, it really is an opportunity. And then you think back 20 years, in that moment you said, I mean, everything's going wrong. But then you look 20 years later, because of the way you responded, then you can see, wow, it was actually an incredible opportunity. And it's good that happened because look at all the things that came from it, from responding and from being adaptable.
It's a great point you raise, and I know you do a lot of work with the NGOs, and so obviously this has been a very challenging time for the NGOs, as the United States has decided that USAID is going to be contracted in some way, shape, or form, and it's such a topsy-turvy approach to it that NGOs are like for-profits. You got to have a stable market conditions that's on it. But in the long run, and it's even like with trade groups, when you put 86% of your sales in the hands of one party, and however benevolent that party might be, if there's a turn or if that party has a problem, just like, listen, the people in the commodities exchange, they were absolutely dedicated to bringing this product onto the market. But once the market collapsed and it was done, remember, this is a banking crisis, so the people who had the money didn't have the money. So but the good news, I guess, is no matter how painful the process was, and those were very painful times. You really have to think about okay, look, I got to have this half cup, half this cup. Well, this is full cup, but when it's half, I gotta look at it that it's half full. That's on there. I can't stop geopolitical problems, just like I can't. I could be building up a resort and all of a sudden there's an earthquake. I can't stop all that. One place that I can remember when we, one of the companies in our incubator, this is a travel tech company, right?
Mhm.
A Pillow and Tea. One thing I found very interesting was founders are engineer by trade. Engineers figure out how to solve problems.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes lawyers know how to create problems, but engineers know how to fix the problems. And I kind of like that. And in this particular case, we had recruited a number of engineers, both in India and in the States, and we had our global label was for legal transactions and for business development.
Mhm.
And with business development, we were doing product development, and we'll get
Right.
into that because you guys have done such a great
Yeah.
job of product development. That's on there, and we always, our headquarters in Chicago is the Palmer House. Now, there's an interesting thing about the Palmer House, and as an entrepreneur, and all of our friends who are young entrepreneurs, and even not so young entrepreneurs who are coming into MGSN, this is an interesting story. So the Palmer House was built, and it was a state-of-the-art time facility, and then all of a sudden, just on the day after opening day was the Great Chicago Fire.
Oh,
Now,
goodness.
whether it was Mrs. Murphy's cow or anything, I think the jury's still out on who actually caused that fire. But the entire, you can see how crestfallen these people. It took them forever to build this beautiful hotel,
Mm.
and it got consumed in the fire. So obviously, the owners and the founders of that magnificent hotel could say,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, I'm done. This is."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
their reaction was they came back and they built a hotel that is absolutely stunning. And it was and they have a stage where live dinner. They had dinner theaters. And of course, a lot of Chicago lore in it. Al Capone apparently lived in there, and so he
Fabulous.
didn't do
Yeah.
it. Typical sort of Chicago story.
Yeah.
But what happened was everything was going just Jim dandy. They have like over 1,000 rooms in that hotel
Oh, wow.
until COVID came. And then when COVID came, then the debt crisis that ensued from that came, and then there was all of these stories about that the Palmer House is going to close down. The Palmer House is going to close down. Now this young engineer who I had out there, who is now the founder of Pillow and Tea, learned about resilience and how to react to setbacks, because she was assigned by to work with engineers who were building out renewable energy infrastructure on a global basis. Their headquarters were down in Dallas. And we had so many issues with respect to investors. What she did was we were putting together this package that was going to go before the investment committee. Things were really, it was late at night. We were in Dallas. We were in the client's office, and it must have been about 2 a.m. And things looked like it wasn't going to work. She got on her smartphone as the engineers were spinning out of control, and the lawyers were looking about, okay, this is going to wind up in court, what have you. And she said, look, I found this great conference with another batch of dedicated investors. I think you guys, I can get on a plane, tomorrow in a couple of hours. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And flew out to California, which she did, and came up with alternatives that we were able to assuage the engineers to stay on board, the initial investors to stay on board, and then present, because we had to do a strategic development with respect to the investment base. These are things where, if you don't react, if you react harshly to these turbulent times, because it's always going to come. Look, it is always going to be turbulence.
It's inevitable.
And the real question is, how do you turn something around? Now let's look at COVID, right? So Zoom came on, and then all these other various meeting groups came on, and then all of a sudden a lot of efficiency came from that. Like, when we have our court hearings and mediations now, a lot of it's done through these meetup video formats. Conversely speaking, it really, I think, jumpstart the transformation into the digital economy. Because once people got used to that, I don't know. I think if we didn't have that scenario where people were actually interfacing on these digital platforms and say, hey, this works, I think it would have been a much slower rollout because I think the entrenched, sorry, this is the way it is. You even see the reaction where some of the older, out of date, companies are saying, hey, you got to come back. You got to come back. You got to come back. Everybody's got to be in the office, no matter how inefficient it is to go 2 hours into the office, 2 hours to go back. We need to be here. But do you really need to be there all the time? So those are some of the issues that you said. What happened with COVID was what would probably normally be phased in a very incremental manner. You got jump start.
It totally jump started, and I think we kind of talked about this through our bootstrap too. Is that when you're talking about the digital age now that we're in, and you talk about opportunities for startups, you can look at AI as, there's pros and cons, right? So if you look at how artificial intelligence and the modernization of the economy and the making pretty much everything digital nowadays, you could say, oh man, we're people are going to be losing their jobs, right? You see all the cashier jobs that they've lost over the last 10 years, and how robots have taken over certain job industries. Yeah, that's bad, right, for the cashier. But look what technology also brought. It brought opportunity, right? It brought all these influencers that never existed. Without this new technology, without these platforms like TikTok and YouTube, that job of the influencer never existed. So, yeah, technology every time, it might eliminate some outdated jobs, but it creates opportunity. And the key to, and I call it opportunity, I don't call it jobs. A lot of people like to say, oh, technology creates jobs. I don't think it creates jobs. I think it creates opportunity. And right now, this new technology that's emerging, like prompt engineering and all these things, it's opportunity. This new technology is creating a space for you to then make a job for yourself, because with this new technology, you can now create that job. It's not going to be, the government's not going to come in and create this job for you. Like, as an entrepreneur, you have the ability right now to take advantage of this. And you see this in our workshops. You see this with Pillow and Tea, with all of the incredible travel logistics and the tools she uses for all the artificial intelligence that she's been able to really take advantage of in her firm. And then you look at Madu Sante and how she's been able to use in the platforms on social media. She's really fitting that influencer, digital age, person that can really form a community that way. So again, with this technology, with this new technology emerging, there's incredible opportunities for startups and entrepreneurs to take advantage of.
There is, and I think what I find significant is again, let's look at demographic shifts. Okay, so in certain countries where they want to have these very strict immigration policies, their populations have contracted to such a point that is their functionality, is their capability of functionality. Okay, now you've got these resources, you've got a concentration of wealth in a few hands, but let's just say, for argument's sake, I'm in the commercial bakery business, and I'm looking at, well, look at the United States population,
Right.
look at Europe's population, or look at South Asia's population. Where am I going to sell my cakes? That's on there, and this is where we see the viability in these markets that are on there. And more importantly, let's look at another aspect of education, ed tech, that had really went. It was already growing before the pandemic, but afterwards, you're really in a position where this is a platform among the South Asian and in many countries in Africa where you work. That's a factor. Fintech.
Yep.
So I have here on my phone, it doesn't work here that I'm in the United States, but I have a Mapisa. Mapisa is a fintech solution. So and what was great about this is that it does trillions of dollars of USD of business transactions, and the fintech application. So once I'm in, once I'm in Kenya, or Tanzania. I put on my Mapiza. I just literally pop this on. There it is.
Mm.
And then I'll go right outside the hotel that I stay at. There's this nice, like 24/7 place. You know, if you want to get like sparkling water and some oranges just to get you through the night, and then you give a couple of shillings into the guy, and then he's got money left over. You put it into your Mapiza account.
Yeah.
Because they're agents. Now, what that did is that I was able to, with aggregation technology, that meant that all of these unbanked population, was able to now have these digital wallets where it would be parked into their cell account, and then they would transact among themselves. So if the person who's the farmer and the woman says, "Hey, listen, I got a big run on my cucumbers in the open markets there.
Yeah.
Can you get one of your sons to drive this out, and I'll throw a few shillings their way?" And that's all gets done through Mapiza. And when you get when she's done in the market, she has a good day. She literally goes to the kiosk or to whatever. She puts the money in, it gets credited right there on the
That's
Mapiza account.
fantastic. Wow.
Now, the banks, once they saw it was $1 trillion worth of transactions,
They
say, "Hey,
want a
we
piece
went
of
in
that."
on this." And
Yep.
I said, "Yeah, thanks, but we could have used you before." And the whole issue that
Yeah.
you hear is, "Hey, let's get this gigantic generation and put them into a banked situation." And I'm saying, why? Why? This is working really well. And you know what? Is it getting to the point where you're going to let digital currencies? You're going to have a basket of currencies. Do you really need to be in a banking institution with all its regulations and with all this? Now they might say, "Well, listen, we're being held to a different standard than these other countries." So, well, maybe so, but you also getting the big cats who are throwing in the big dough into your banks. Let these fintech products develop. Now, would that have been possible before? And this is really where you're right in being in what's deemed to be the South market, where you're doing transactions and trades between India and Africa. That's where the consumer base is.
Yeah.
And the truth is, okay, big bank, you blew it. You kind of looked at these masses of people and say, "Oh, this place is beyond help," and they helped themselves. And and the way things are done is, somebody wants to open up let's say in Tanzania, they want to open up a store and have a 24-hour coffee because they're right next to a hospital, right?
Yeah.
So he said, "Okay, I go to the bank." Says, "Well, you don't really have a credit history." So what they do is they go on to their Mapiza. They say, "Here's my Mapiza number," and then they put out their own marketing. Basically their pitch deck is down on their phone, and then they sent that out to friends and family, and then they said, "Hey, bring this in," and then they open up this coffee shop, and then all of a sudden, they have to pay back the loans through Mapiza, and there is a risk factor that's in there, but there's also, again, is that glass half full or half empty? There's also an opportunity there.
I think that's kind of the theme of what's kind of happening in the economy right now. I think there's a lot of risk, but there's a lot of opportunity, right? You can look at that. That pro-con thing is if you look at it half empty, you're saying, "Oh my God, there's so much risk there. AI is going to take over. There's so much, things to worry about." Or you look at it half full and you really see just opportunity. And I think when you get to the pandemic and how that really jump started this whole, AI on automation and, everything online, I think there is something to be said that, maybe humanity was rushed into something that they're not ready for. Maybe I think the mass population is definitely behind the ball. I don't think they really understand what's going on in AI. I don't think even experts know what's going on with AI because it's moving so fast. So yes, we might be running too fast, but I think with that comes extreme opportunity, right? Because you have an economy that might be ahead of its time. So you have a whole mass of consumers that are ready to be sold to. Basically, they're sitting there. The market's sitting there, and you have all this extra time to kind of get ahead of that, to start developing and start forming your companies and start getting those strategic partnerships. So I think with that risk and with that, people are it's a totally new I mean, industry of AI and everything that's going on with technology right now, that's uncertainty. With that uncertainty, there's even more opportunity. And, while you might call it risk, I think, ultimately for a startup and for an entrepreneur, you're looking at it being like eyes wide open and being like, let me just dive right into this. Because at the end of the day, there is a lot of risk with starting companies and creating your own businesses. But, I think right now more than ever, there's more opportunity, there's more upside than there ever has been.
Well, I think about it. I guess if I was to, go back 40 years and with the same sort of scenario that a lot of young people are set for, you got companies in the tech sector and the finance sector who are basically contracting employment, and they're deploying some sort of version of an AI to close some of the deals, to perform some of the tasks that they used to hire somebody for. All right, so well, what does that mean? That means, okay, so I'm that cashier you're talking about, or I'm the person who was doing data entry, and now that's out, that's on there. So an interesting topic that when we were doing research for a white paper is that 90%, according to a survey that was conducted and printed in India, 90% of Indian adults felt or had the desire to start their own business, right? Then, recent study in the United States, especially among Gen Z, is that 60 to 7% would like to start their own business.
Fantastic.
And the reason for that is obvious. You want to be in control of your destiny as much as you can in an uncontrollable environment. You want to have as much control as you can. And the bottom line is this: most of the people in that age bracket have gone through, as you guys did, and the millennials. You want to be loyal to a company, you're right there. Then all of a sudden they're acquired, you get redundant out, or they contract, and or investors say, "Hey, sorry, we're pulling our money out, we're going here." And great startups got collapsed because they did not strategically align themselves up with the proper investor that's on there. But the issue is kind of clear. Like, if the cashier is saying, "Okay, look, I really like bacon. I really do a really nice baked goods." Now, you might recall during the last time we were together during the holiday seasons, there was a baked goods that we had from a bakery in Seattle, which we're going to see in the last leg of. Now that's a great story. This young baker, she was going to open up her bakery, and then of course then the pandemic came in. And then she couldn't get the financing, so she did it in tents and pop-ups and this, that, and the other thing, and then created this great bakery that's on there. What the technology allows you to do is, before, it would take forever to build out your name, but here you can get a name for yourself, and you can use social media to do it. Another case example: Insomnia cookies. Now they're all over the place. You go, on my way up to Boston yesterday, they're
everywhere now.
So you know how that started. This guy it was started in the dorms in university. The founders went in and they started cooking in the little kitchenette area in the dorm, and people say, "Hey, these are great cookies. These are really fantastic cookies." And then all of a sudden, everybody in the dorm wanted to get they put cookie orders, and these guys are saying, "Look, we don't have time to do our reading, writing, and arithmetic. We got some cookies to make." And that's how that all started. That's not why they went to school, but that's how they wound up.
It's really cool how these companies too are really taking advantage of social media nowadays. So there's incredible new startup pop-up bagels in Boston, where they really did this kind of guerrilla like marketing campaign where they would just like pop up for a little bit, and then you drive like attention to it, and then only open for a couple hours of the day, and have these incredible bagels. But what it did was it drove like so much attention to it, where it had these massive lines in Boston, and of course, like every day it was like viral because there's so many people on the social media talking about where's it going to pop up, and all these different things. And now it's like, now they have like these actual brick and mortar locations now, and they're starting to really pick up. But I think why you see so many Gen Zers and younger folks really interested in being an entrepreneur and starting their own business is because they see all these overnight sensations. It just takes one video and you go viral. It takes one good social media campaign, and all of a sudden your business is booming. And the incredible thing is that we have that opportunity now, like with this, TikTok, this controversial TikTok algorithm. You really do have the ability with 0 followers. If you make good content that really, really engages and is authentic with an audience, like that thing will get shared and it will get, viral, and you can blow up and get, millions of views in one night. So it's not like the old age, even social media, where you needed to like very organically grow an audience and have a following to really have any reach, or maybe you have to pay a lot of money to Meta to get a certain amount of reach. I mean, overnight, if you're putting out something really authentic and telling a story, in a very unique way, you can gain attention overnight. And I love seeing companies and startups and small businesses and entrepreneurs taking advantage of that, because, like we've been talking about, there's so much opportunity with these platforms and new technology. So, just super exciting time to be in the digital marketing space, the digital development space that we're in right now.
Yeah, and let's look at a wonderful project that we were involved in. The law group that I'm in, we do a lot of civil rights work, and we had a civil rights case that was very, very, very deleterious to somebody who been the client that we took on was being victimized by law enforcement, and we needed to get that message out.
Yeah,
it was and there's a lot of loud noise out there with respect to various people who have various very strong problems that they're trying to bring to the marketplace. So what we did was we retained you guys, and the trial lawyer. It was a very big trial team, right? So we had 10 lawyers that we recruited from a bar association, young lawyers who wanted to get involved in civil rights work, and then we had a couple of old trial horses that had long experience in human rights and civil rights litigation. But the bottom line is the government was digging in. The government put the full power of the United States behind it. They were digging in their position. They signed some pretty good, respectable attorneys to litigate their cause. And we needed to get, financial support to defend our client against the transgressions that the government was doing. So what you guys did was you drafted up a petition, and you put this beautiful a little movie that dealt with that was drawn out of the fact patterns that created an imagery that people could see about how the transgressions were being perpetrated against our client by government entities. And then you tied that into a GoFundMe page that was on there. And now without that digital products, it would have been so hard for us. We would try to get ourselves in front of a newspaper editor. We would try to get, so instead of having the lawyers go in and make themselves like it was in the old days, where you go and knock down interviews and you hope they'll take the column and write it. We were able to take care of this ourselves. We didn't have to. We didn't do traditional media. We did social media, and then the results were phenomenal.
That was a great project that we did in partnership with you guys and the young Irish American activists. And we actually set up, we did a whole digital landing page for that organization, and I worked, all within that organization. There were so many incredible young activists, willing to work with me too. And then, of course, with your team, it was really cool to see how, overnight you can really start a movement. This isn't just for startups and businesses. You can start, political activism and movements overnight as well, taking advantage of these tools and these opportunities right now and the technology. All you need is a website and to make good content that's engaging. And if you have a story to tell and this story was, really important to this cause, and you tell it in the right way, and you show, how much it is, meaningful, you really can, you know, get attention, authentically. And I think the key to social media right now is that authenticity. So when we're talking about, back in the day, maybe you have to go to a traditional PR firm, or get it in a magazine publication or a traditional, publication, you can see how people aren't, buying that anymore. People aren't, engaging with that sort of traditional media anymore. You see, even mass media and traditional media, these news stations, people are starting to tend to go to podcasts and long form, sort of content on YouTube. And it's because there's authenticity there. There's not that facade, and that, where you have a bunch of consultants telling you what to say, and interestingly enough, you see this in politics now too. You see how even politicians and leaders, the ones that are driving the most attention and getting the most influence, are the people that are breaking that third wall and just being authentic. Because when you see people like tweet online, you can tell, is their PR firm tweeting that out, or is that someone that is actually, tweeting it themselves, like, in real time. So I think that's, a huge deal when it comes to, you know, being authentic with your brand, and that cannot just be, that's not just your startup, but also can be, starting a movement or starting an organization or a petition online.
Well, listen, this is one of these things we were dealing with in the workshop. The effectiveness of, again, the theme of this is, don't be afraid of these emerging technologies. Find out how you can reposition yourself. Yes, if every day you went to work and you were a cashier, and now there's, a robot who's doing this, that, and the other thing, then say, well, okay, I had some passions. I never really liked my job, but it helped pay the bills. They said, now what do I need to do to get this up and running? And yeah, and now one thing I noticed when we work with entrepreneurs who are repositioning themselves,
Mm-hmm.
they get so excited about their project that they say, okay, how am I going to get funded? I said, don't go to an investor. Yeah, first of all, you don't have investment grade, number one. Number two, you don't have your passion, what you're developing. You don't have that ability to attract, like you're not a unicorn. I said,
Right.
so what to do is, he says, go out and find another, what would be called a dead end job, just so that you can pay your bills, put the money into it, and then you see the energy that they have. They saying, it's no longer like I'm going into this dead end job. I am now in a position where I'm funding this passion that I have, that I always wanted to do. I always wanted to have this as a startup. And this is how you can control these developing digital technologies that are coming here to your advantage place. Just like, I can't tell you, because I've been in that civil rights movement for over 40 years. And it used to be going to the editors, and it took a lot of our time away. This time, all the lawyers were able to do is concentrate on what they're supposed to do, is this. And then we let guys like you, the digital marketing companies, do this. And by the way, not for nothing, I was just reading also that, a sad story in New York City was that because of the rising cost of living in New York City, the Catholic school system, which was really the stopgap for the working class communities to get an education, and in a very diverse environment, because the public school system in New York City is not. And in that particular case, they're all sort of collapsing under the weight of the fact that they can't pay teachers a living wage, they can't live there. But now I understand that some of the schools are now going to the social media front and saying, look, they're pleading their case. Yeah. Very similar to the campaign that you guys worked on. So these are where would they be without AI? Where would they be without the technologies? Because then it would be, say, well, you got to hire a public relations firm, and then we got to get to the editors, but it wouldn't have happened.
Well, and the big theme of, we use this hashtag all the time, and it's kind of the motto behind Thinklin and behind Demo, Thinklin, is democratizing growth, right? So it used to be only the top companies can afford these big PR firms and these big traditional, publications. But now with social media, we're democratizing that opportunity with these new emerging technologies because now any company, whether you're a one-person team or a solopreneur, you can get on in front of a camera and plead your case. You can be, you know, direct with the people, with the market, and say, hey, this is my product, or this is my service. This is the value that I can bring, or solution I can bring to the world. I think that's an incredible opportunity. And again, we don't want to sugarcoat this, folks. It's like, yeah, you know, as much as these new opportunities are new from the traditional, you know, media or traditional market, it's just as hard. You know, you got. It's not for the faint of heart, being an entrepreneur or starting your own startup. It takes a lot of work, but I think the key to this, and this is something that we've really been reiterating in our workshops, is that if it seems really hard and really challenging, well, then there's an opportunity there, and there's something that you might want to lean into, because that means there's better chance that no one else there is trying to solve that. Because the harder that challenge is, if you actually have the willingness to solve it, you're more likely than not, you're going to probably be, you know, one of the few people that are actually, you know, going after that. And if you're able to solve it and bring it to the marketplace, there's tremendous upside. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult. But I think the more difficult it is, the more opportunity and the more upside there is for you as an individual or as a company. And that's really the bottom line there.
It is. Hey, listen, I'll tell you, this is now day 2 of the workshop. First off, speaking of Pillow and Tea, big thumbs up for the facility.
I mean, this here in Portland, this co-working space, you know, Co-work Hers in Portland, Maine. I mean, you can look at this incredible facility. It's been one of the most productive spaces we've ever been in.
Yeah,
I mean,
and we've had some good ones.
Yeah.
We've had some good ones in Galway.
Mhm.
We had some. We had phenomenal ones in France during Euro 2024. So, look, Mac, I tell you, this has been a great time. We got a big day tomorrow.
Huge day. Yeah.
Anybody out there who really needs a digital development for your campaigns, you really got to think about Thinklin. That's on there. I know we have a very satisfied client, and we had very satisfied lawyers, because, believe it or not, lawyers do not, real trial lawyers, they don't like traipsing around to public relations things. It's nice just to put that off to them, and then we just concentrate on our briefs. No, I can't account for the guys who like to be on TV all the time. Anyway, having said all of that, I would love to close this night out on the words that I'd love to hear.
And I just want to wrap it up saying we've talked a lot about strategic alliances, right? And the sponsors of this incredible podcast that we've been doing now for a while is Thinklin and MGSN. So, you know, please go to mgsn.net, continue to follow this podcast and all these business developments. And of course, go to thinklin.com if you need any digital development. Our team would be happy to talk to you and come up with a plan with you. And as always, for everyone listening, go start your startups.